I used to believe in perfect marriages until I discovered mine was built on a lie so elaborate, it took my own brother to unravel it. Here I sit in my empty house, divorce papers scattered across the kitchen table like battlefield casualties. And I can't stop thinking about how completely she fooled me. 7 years of marriage, and I never saw it coming. Not once. At 36, I thought I had it all figured out. Steady IT job at a mid-sized firm, decent house in the suburbs, and Marissa. She was the woman who seemed to complete my thoughts before I finished them, who remembered exactly how I liked my coffee without ever being asked, who never once gave me a reason to doubt her devotion. Our mornings were choreographed perfection. She'd wake up first, always, padding barefoot to the kitchen in one of my old t-shirts that barely covered her thighs. By the time I stumbled downstairs, coffee would be brewing, and she'd greet me with that sleepy smile that made every day feel like a gift. "Morning, handsome," she'd whisper against my neck, and I'd pull her close, breathing in the vanilla scent of her shampoo. We had our rituals, our inside jokes, our comfortable silences. Friday nights meant Thai takeout and whatever Netflix series she'd picked, usually something with British accents that I pretended to find boring but secretly enjoyed because of how she'd curl up against me, her head on my shoulder, her fingers tracing absent patterns on my chest. I felt genuinely lucky, almost guilty when my buddies complained about their wives' nagging or emotional demands. "You don't know how good you have it," I'd tell them, and I believed it completely. Marissa wasn't just beautiful, though she was, with those dark eyes and the way she moved like she was dancing to music only she could hear. She was emotionally intelligent in ways that constantly surprised me. When I'd come home stressed about a server crash or a difficult client, she could read my mood before I said a word. One look, one touch, and the tension would drain from my shoulders. Our modest house felt like a sanctuary because she made it one. But that's the thing about hindsight. It's 2020 and absolutely merciless. Now I can see the inconsistencies I'd dismissed so easily. The late nights with girlfriends that became more frequent over the past few months. The sudden interest in working out, in buying new clothes, in paying attention to her appearance in ways that seemed motivated by something beyond our relationship. The subtle changes in how she handled her phone, always face down now, always within arm's reach, the way she'd angle the screen away from me when texting. At the time, I'd trusted her completely. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife, my partner, the woman who'd promised to love only me for better or worse. When she said she was having dinner with college friends I hadn't met, I believed her. When she started those evening workout sessions at the new gym across town 3 months ago, I was proud of her dedication. When she became protective of her phone around the same time, I figured everyone was entitled to privacy. Every loving gesture now feels like evidence of her deception. Every kiss, every "I love you," every moment of intimacy, all of it potentially performed while she was planning to be with someone else. The weight of that realization sits on my chest like a physical thing, making it hard to breathe sometimes. Keep thinking about the last few months, scanning my memory for signs I missed. Was she thinking about him when she was with me? Was she comparing us? Did she laugh at how clueless I was? How easy it was to maintain her perfect wife act while living a completely separate life? The woman I thought I knew, the one who made me feel like the luckiest man alive, never existed. I was married to a character she played, a role she performed so convincingly that I never questioned the script. It was Kyle who finally opened my eyes. My younger brother, the one who'd always been more skeptical about love, more aware of people's capacity for deception. He'd been seeing someone casually through dating apps, he told me later, when he stumbled across something that made his blood run cold. That quiet Saturday afternoon when he dropped by for a visit, I should have noticed his uncharacteristic nervousness. Kyle's usually the most relaxed person I know, but he kept checking his phone, kept looking toward the door like he expected someone. When he suggested we take a walk like old times, His casualness felt forced. I thought he just wanted to talk, maybe needed relationship advice about whatever woman he was seeing that month. We'd always been close, and I was happy to spend time with him. As we headed out the door together, I had no idea I was walking toward the moment that would shatter everything I believed about my life. The afternoon air felt different somehow, charged with the kind of tension that comes before a storm breaks. Kyle and I walked the familiar sidewalk outside my house, but something was wrong with his energy. My brother, who could usually talk for hours about anything from sports to the latest tech gadgets, kept falling into uncomfortable silences. His usual easy banter was replaced by careful words and sideways glances that made my skin crawl with anticipation. "Dan, there's something I need to show you," he finally said, stopping abruptly near the oak tree where we used to climb as kids. The way he said it, gentle but determined, made my stomach drop. "What is it?" I asked, though part of me already knew I didn't want to hear the answer. Kyle pulled out his phone, his fingers hesitating over the screen. "I've been casually dating, using apps, you know, but yesterday..." He stopped, swallowed hard. "Yesterday, I came across a profile that I think you need to see." The world seemed to slow down as he turned the phone toward me. There she was, my wife, my Marissa, staring back at me from a Tinder profile with that sultry smile I thought belonged only to me. The same smile she'd given me that very morning over coffee. The profile photos were far from innocent. In one, she wore the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year, the one she claimed made her feel too sexy to wear out in public. Another showed her in workout clothes at what looked like our bedroom, taken from an angle that emphasized her curves. Her bio twisted details of our private life into public currency. Love cooking for the right person. Netflix and wine kind of girl. Looking for someone who can keep up with me. I stared at the screen until the images burned into my retinas. This couldn't be real. There had to be some mistake, some explanation that would make sense of why my wife was advertising herself to strangers like she was single and available. "Are you sure this is..." I started, but the words died in my throat. Of course I was sure. I'd been looking at that face for 7 years, memorizing every curve and angle. I knew the way she tilted her head when she wanted to look seductive. Knew the exact shade of lipstick she was wearing in the photos. "I'm sorry, man," Kyle said quietly. "I really hoped I was wrong about what I was seeing." My mind raced through desperate alternatives. Maybe her account had been hacked. Maybe this was some kind of elaborate prank. Maybe she was helping a friend create a fake profile for some reason I couldn't fathom. But even as I constructed these scenarios, I knew they were fantasies. The photos were recent. I recognized the haircut she'd gotten just last month. The details in her bio were too specific, too personal. "We need proof," Kyle said. And I realized he'd been thinking about this since yesterday when he first found her profile. Real proof that would hold up if you need it. Right there on the sidewalk, as my world collapsed around me, my brother started outlining a plan. We'd create a fake profile using photos of his friend Marcus, a guy who looked nothing like Kyle but had the kind of rugged good looks that seemed to do well on dating sites. Together, we'd craft a bio that would appeal to exactly the kind of woman Marissa was pretending to be. Successful, confident, looking for something meaningful, but not too serious. "We'll message her," Kyle explained. "See if she responds. If she's willing to meet. If she is..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. We walked back to my house in silence, Kyle leaving with a casual goodbye like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. I was no longer a happily married man. I was a spy in my own life, gathering intelligence on the woman sharing my bed. That evening, sitting across from Marissa at our kitchen table, I watched her with new eyes. She asked about my day with Kyle, laughed at something on her phone, discussed weekend plans like she wasn't actively shopping for my replacement. The normalcy felt surreal, like being an actor in a play where I'd forgotten my lines. Kyle texted me, updates over the next few days. On Sunday, he'd created the Marcus profile and sent Marissa a message. Your smile caught my attention. Would love to get to know you better over coffee. She'd matched with him within hours and responded enthusiastically. For 3 days, I lived inside a lie I could finally see. Every conversation, every casual touch, every mundane domestic moment became a performance we were both giving, though she didn't know I'd dropped out of character. I found myself cataloging her gestures for signs of deception, analyzing her, words for hidden meanings, watching her face for tells I'd been too trusting to notice before. The hardest part was maintaining the illusion. When she kissed me goodbye each morning, I had to respond like I still believed her love was real. When she asked about my day, I had to pretend my world hadn't shifted on its axis. When she curled up against me at night, I had to lie still and let her touch me, while knowing she was actively chatting with someone she thought was a potential lover. By Monday, their conversation had taken on a flirtatious tone. She was asking Marcus about his interests, his work, what he was looking for. She seemed genuinely excited about this connection, more animated in her messages than she'd been with me in months. By Tuesday, she'd agreed to meet him for coffee. They'd settled on a time and place. Wednesday afternoon at Ridgeview Bistro, 15 minutes from my office. She told Marcus she was looking forward to seeing where things might lead. When Kyle called me at work on Tuesday with the final confirmation, I had to close my office door and sit down. She's agreed to meet tomorrow at 2 o'clock, he said. Ridgeview Bistro. She thinks she's meeting Marcus for coffee and conversation. Ridgeview Bistro. I knew the place. Marissa and I had eaten there on our 3rd anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me that she'd chosen our special place to meet another man. What do you want to do? Kyle asked. I closed my eyes, and for a moment I saw 2 paths branching in front of me. I could confront her tonight, tell her I knew everything, demand explanations and promises and couples therapy. Or I could let this play out, catch her in the act, and end this marriage with the kind of decisive action that would leave no room for manipulation or gaslighting. Tomorrow afternoon, I said. We finish this. After Kyle's call on Tuesday afternoon, I sat in my office staring at the wall, processing the split-second decision I'd just made. I could have rushed home, confronted Marissa immediately, demanded to know why my wife was planning to meet another man. But something deeper than anger was driving me now, a cold, systematic need for absolute clarity. I left work 2 hours early and drove to the law offices of Henderson and Associates. I'd researched divorce attorneys months ago when a colleague went through his own messy separation, never imagining I'd need the information myself. Sarah Henderson was known for handling high-asset divorces with infidelity complications, and her consultation fee was worth every penny for what I learned in that hour. The prenup we'd signed before our wedding included a specific infidelity clause. If either party committed adultery, they forfeited their claim to the other's assets accumulated during the marriage. At the time, we'd both laughed about it. Who needs a cheating clause when you're so obviously in love? Now I understood why my father had insisted on it. Documented evidence of intent to commit adultery is legally sufficient, Sarah explained, reviewing the screenshots Kyle had taken of Marissa's profile and their conversations. Explicit chat logs combined with evidence of showing up to a planned meeting with someone she believes to be a potential affair partner. That's more than enough to trigger the infidelity clause. The legal framework gave me something to focus on beyond the emotional devastation. This wasn't just about my broken heart anymore. It was about protecting myself from someone who demonstrated a complete willingness to deceive me. I was treating this like debugging corrupted code. Isolate the problem, gather the information, implement the solution. But unlike code, this problem slept next to me, knew exactly how I took my coffee, and had spent 7 years learning how to read my moods. That Tuesday evening became the most surreal performance of my life. I returned home to find Marissa unusually attentive, almost flirtatious in a way she hadn't been in months. She made my favorite dinner, wore the perfume I'd bought her for Christmas, sat closer to me on the couch than usual. Looking back, it was probably guilt overcompensation, but at the time it felt like being tortured by a ghost of our better days. "I'm thinking of going to bed early tonight," she mentioned around 9 o'clock, stretching like a cat. "Want to feel fresh tomorrow?" Fresh for her date? The realization hit me like a physical blow, but I managed to nod and smile. "Good idea. I'll be up in a few minutes." I lay awake beside her that night, listening to her breathing, knowing she was preparing to meet another man in less than 24 hours. Every time she shifted in her sleep, every unconscious touch or murmur felt like evidence of her deception. This woman who'd promised to love only me was planning to meet a stranger, to see where things might lead, to potentially destroy our marriage for someone she'd never even met in person. Wednesday morning preparation became ritual. I chose what to wear to Ridgeview Bistro, with the same care I'd once used selecting an outfit for our first date. I practiced what I would say, how I would handle her inevitable denials and deflections, what tone would convey controlled disappointment rather than unhinged rage. I called in sick to work, family emergency, which felt brutally honest. Kyle met me at a coffee shop at noon, an hour before the scheduled confrontation, to review our evidence one final time. Screenshots of every message, timestamps showing Marissa's enthusiasm for meeting Marcus, her explicit agreement to the specific time and location. We had everything we needed. "Are you sure about this?" Kyle asked, studying my face. "Once we walk in there, there's no going back." I thought about the woman who'd made me coffee that morning, who'd kissed my cheek and told me to feel better, who had no idea her husband knew exactly where she was planning to be at 2 o'clock. I thought about 7 years of what I'd believed was genuine love and partnership. "There's already no going back," I said. She made sure of that the moment. She created that profile. The walk to Ridgeview Bistro felt like approaching my own execution. I was about to watch my marriage die in public, surrounded by strangers eating lunch and having normal conversations about ordinary things. The Wednesday afternoon light slanted through the restaurant's windows at sharp angles, casting everything in amber tones that made the moment feel both hyper-real and dreamlike. Through the window, I could see her before she saw me. Marissa sat at a corner table wearing her red dress, the one that always made me lose my train of thought, the one she'd worn on our honeymoon in Greece. She'd chosen it specifically for this meeting, I realized. She was dressed to seduce a, stranger while her husband sat 15 minutes away at his office, probably wondering why she'd seemed so happy that morning. She kept checking her phone, adjusting her hair, scanning the entrance with the nervous excitement of someone anticipating a first date. The woman I'd pledged my life to was sitting in our anniversary restaurant, waiting for another man, looking more animated than she had in months when she was with me. Kyle appeared at my shoulder. "Ready?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure anyone could ever be ready to watch their world end. But as I reached for the restaurant door, I realized something had shifted inside me. The grief and shock were still there, but they'd been joined by something colder and more practical. This wasn't just about catching Marissa in a lie anymore. It was about reclaiming my life from someone who'd been systematically deceiving me. It was about choosing truth over comfortable illusion, even when the truth was devastating. I checked my watch, 2 p.m. exactly. I opened the door and stepped inside. The moment I walked through the door of Ridgeview Bistro, everything crystallized into sharp focus. Marissa sat at table 12, a corner table with good privacy, the kind you'd choose for an intimate conversation. Wearing that red dress and checking her phone with anticipation, I hadn't seen her direct toward me in months. Her face changed through a sequence of expressions that would have been comical if they weren't destroying my life. First confusion as she registered a familiar figure approaching, then recognition, her eyes widening as she realized her husband was walking toward her in a restaurant where she was supposed to meet another man. Finally, dawning horror as the full scope of her exposure became clear. "Daniel?" Her voice cracked slightly. "What are you doing here?" I pulled out the chair across from her, the same position Kyle had coached me to take for maximum psychological impact. "I think the better question is what you're doing here, Marissa. Waiting for someone." She started to speak, probably to construct some desperate lie about meeting a girlfriend or having a work lunch. But Kyle's appearance behind me cut off whatever fabrication she was preparing. My brother sat down next to me without invitation, placing his phone on the table between us. "Actually," Kyle said, his voice calm and conversational, "she's waiting for Marcus. Aren't you, Marissa?" The color drained from her face as she stared at Kyle's phone screen, which displayed their entire conversation. Every flirtatious message, every expression of interest, every agreement to meet for coffee and see where things might lead. The evidence was undeniable and absolutely damning. "This isn't what it looks like," she whispered, but her voice carried no conviction. How could it? She was sitting in a restaurant at exactly 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, dressed to impress, having agreed to meet a man she'd never met for what was clearly intended as a romantic encounter. "Go to your parents," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "Your paperwork will find you there." "Daniel, please let me explain." "There's nothing to explain." I gestured to Kyle's phone. "It's all right here. Every message, every plan, every lie. You created a dating profile while married to me. You flirted with a stranger while sharing my bed. You agreed to meet another man while wearing the dress I bought you for our honeymoon." She tried tears next, the kind of desperate sobbing that had always made me want to comfort her. But now I could see it for what it was. A manipulation tactic, performed emotion designed to make me doubt what I was seeing with my own eyes. "It's Kyle's fault," she said suddenly, pointing at my brother like he was the villain in this scenario. "He seduced me. He manipulated me into this. I never would have—" "Kyle created a fake profile," I interrupted. "But you matched with it willingly. You initiated conversations enthusiastically. You agreed to meet eagerly. He didn't make you do anything except reveal what you were already willing to do." Kyle remained silent through her accusations, but I could see him taking mental notes of every word. Later, he'd tell me that her immediate instinct to blame him, to cast herself as victim even when caught absolutely red-handed, confirmed everything he'd suspected about her character. "You don't understand," she continued, switching tactics. "Our marriage has been struggling. I felt neglected, unappreciated. I wasn't actually going to do anything. I just wanted to feel desired again. By creating a secret dating profile and arranging to meet strange men." I stood up, Kyle following my lead. "While wearing my anniversary gift to meet another man at our anniversary restaurant." The restaurant around us continued functioning normally, servers taking orders, couples sharing meals, business people having lunch meetings. None of them knew they were witnessing the execution of a 7-year marriage, the moment when comfortable lies finally collapsed under the weight of documented truth. Marissa made one final attempt, reaching for my hand across the table. "Daniel, I love you. This was a mistake, a moment of weakness. We can work through this, go to counseling, start over." I pulled my hand away before she could touch me. The woman I'd loved was gone, if she'd ever existed at all. In her place sat someone I didn't recognize, a person capable of elaborate deception, of planning betrayal while maintaining perfect domesticity, of blaming everyone except herself when the consequences arrived. "The prenup has an infidelity clause," I said. "Your lawyer will explain what that means." Kyle and I left her sitting at that corner table, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal, still wearing the red dress she'd chosen for another man. Through the restaurant window, I could see her staring at the phone screen that displayed her own words, her own choices, her own willingness to destroy everything we'd built together. The afternoon light felt different as we walked away. Cleaner, somehow, like the air after a storm has finally passed. The trap we'd set had worked perfectly, but only because she'd chosen to step into it. Every message, every flirtation, every agreement to meet. Those were her decisions, her actions, her betrayal. As we reached my car, Kyle put his hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry it came to this." I nodded, feeling something that wasn't quite relief but wasn't devastation either. For the first time in days, I knew exactly where I stood. The marriage was over, but the lies were finally finished too. "Thank you," I said, "for caring enough to show me the truth." The divorce proceedings unfolded with anticlimactic efficiency. 4 weeks after the confrontation at Ridgeview Bistro, I sat across from Marissa and her attorney in a conference room that smelled like leather and disappointment, watching the legal machinery execute exactly as designed. Sarah Henderson had been right about the strength of our evidence. The screenshots of Marissa's dating profile, her conversations with Marcus, and witness testimony about her appearance at the planned meeting created an airtight infidelity case. The prenup's adultery clause activated like a perfectly engineered trap, protecting every asset I'd accumulated during our marriage. My client was entrapped. Marissa's lawyer argued half-heartedly, but even he seemed to understand the futility of the position. This was an elaborate scheme designed to trick her into compromising behavior. "Your client created a dating profile while married," Sarah responded calmly. "She initiated romantic conversations with someone she believed to be a stranger. She agreed to meet that person while her husband was unaware of her actions. The trap only worked because she was already willing to commit adultery." I watched Marissa during these exchanges, noting how she avoided my eyes, how she sat rigidly in her chair like someone attending her own sentencing, which, in a way, she was. Her attorney had clearly advised her not to contest evidence she couldn't refute, not to extend proceedings that would only cost money and dignity she couldn't afford to lose. The house would remain mine. I'd owned it before our marriage and maintained the mortgage payments throughout. Our joint savings would be split, but the retirement accounts and investment portfolios I'd built were protected by the prenup. She could keep her car, her personal belongings, and whatever money she'd managed to save separately. After 7 years of marriage, she was leaving with essentially what she'd brought to it. "This isn't fair," she said during a brief recess, cornering me near the elevator. 7 years, Daniel. 7 years of my life, and I'm walking away with nothing because of one mistake." "One mistake?" I kept my voice low but couldn't entirely suppress the anger. "You created a secret dating profile. You flirted with strangers for weeks. You arranged to meet another man while married to me. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern of deliberate deception." She started to respond. Probably with another attempt to rewrite history or minimize her choices, but I held up my hand. "The prenup was your idea originally," I reminded her. "You said people who cheat don't deserve to benefit from the marriages they destroy. You were right." Meanwhile, Marissa's campaign to salvage her reputation was failing spectacularly. She'd told our mutual friends that Kyle had seduced and manipulated her, that I'd orchestrated an elaborate entrapment scheme, that our marriage had been already over, and she was just seeking companionship. But the friends who mattered had seen the evidence, had watched her behavior in the months leading up to the confrontation, had noticed the inconsistencies in her various explanations. Kyle became her primary target for blame and manipulation. She called him directly, alternating between accusations and attempts at seduction that he recorded and shared with me. In one particularly revealing voicemail, she claimed he'd destroyed a happy marriage and ruined her life for jealousy of our relationship. In another, left just hours later, she suggested they should finish what we started since I was being unreasonable about a simple mistake. These messages only confirmed what I'd begun to suspect, that Marissa was fundamentally unable to accept responsibility for her choices. Even faced with absolute proof of her deception, even watching her marriage dissolve because of actions she'd taken, she continued seeking someone else to blame for the consequences. She contacted me again last night, Kyle reported during one of our weekly dinners a month after the paperwork was signed. Threatened to tell everyone I'm a predator who manipulates married women, then 20 minutes later sent a photo asking if I wanted to see what I was missing. Jesus, I muttered, but I wasn't surprised anymore. This was who she'd always been. I'd just been too trusting to see it. The final paperwork was signed on a Tuesday morning in November, exactly 2 months after that Saturday when Kyle first showed me her profile. Marissa's signature looked shaky as she transferred ownership of our shared life back to me, officially ending what she'd secretly ended months earlier with her dating profile. She returned her key to the house she'd never legally owned, packed the last boxes of belongings from the bedroom we'd shared, and disappeared from my daily existence as efficiently as she'd entered it 7 years before. That evening, I sat in my kitchen now, and felt something I hadn't expected. Relief, not celebration, not triumph, just the quiet satisfaction of authentic solitude. No more performance, no more wondering what she was really thinking, no more analyzing every gesture for signs of deception I'd been too naive to recognize. The house felt smaller without her belongings scattered through it, but it also felt honest. In a way it hadn't in months. Every space was genuinely mine, every decision made without considering someone else's hidden agenda, every routine built around my actual preferences rather than maintaining a facade of domestic harmony. Kyle had been right to show me the truth, even knowing it would devastate me. The marriage I'd been fighting to preserve had ended the moment she created that profile. I'd just been too blind to see it. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I'm sitting in my home office on a Saturday morning drinking coffee made, exactly how I like it, watching Kyle install new shelving in what used to be Marissa's craft room. The space feels genuinely mine for the first time in years. Furniture arranged for my comfort, walls painted in colors I chose, routines built around my preferences rather than maintaining someone else's elaborate deception. The house is quieter without her belongings filling every corner, but it's also more honest. There are no mysterious late-night phone calls to explain away, no sudden changes in routine to accommodate, no constant low-level anxiety about inconsistencies I'd trained myself not to notice. The silence feels peaceful rather than ominous. Kyle and I have grown closer through this experience, our relationship deepening beyond shared trauma into genuine friendship. He still feels guilty about being the messenger, but I remind him regularly that he saved me from wasting more years on a woman who'd already checked out of our marriage. Our weekly dinners have become a constant I look forward to. Two men who've seen each other's worst moments and chosen loyalty anyway. She texted me again yesterday, Kyle mentions as he measures the wall space. These updates have become routine, and he always shares them immediately. Transparency is something we both value more highly now. Same pattern? I ask. First message called me a homewrecker who destroyed her life. Second message, sent an hour later, included a photo and asked if I wanted to get together to talk about things. Kyle shakes his head. I don't think she's capable of understanding that her choices have consequences. Marissa's continued inability to accept responsibility for her actions only reinforces the decision to end our marriage cleanly and completely. She's told anyone who'll listen that she was trapped and set up, never acknowledging that the trap only worked because she willingly stepped into it. According to mutual friends, she's dating someone new, a divorced father she met, ironically enough, on the same dating app where Kyle found her profile. I've started dating again, cautiously, but with much better instincts. The experience with Marissa didn't make me cynical about relationships. It made me discerning. I can recognize manipulation techniques now, trust my intuition about inconsistencies, value transparency over performance. When someone's words don't match their actions, I pay attention instead of making excuses. Last month, I went to dinner with Sarah, a colleague from work who'd been divorced herself 2 years ago. We talked openly about our experiences, about the difference between love and manipulation, about building relationships on honesty rather than comfortable illusions. At the end of the evening, she said something that stuck with me. The best thing about starting over is that you know what you won't tolerate anymore. She was right. I won't tolerate secret phone conversations, unexplained absences, or sudden changes in behavior that don't add up. I won't make excuses for someone who can't give straight answers to simple questions. I won't confuse performance with authenticity or mistake someone's need for attention with genuine affection. The betrayal was devastating, but it was also liberation. Marissa's deception freed me from a relationship built on lies, revealed who my true allies were, and taught me the difference between love and manipulation. I'm grateful to Kyle not just for exposing the truth, but for standing with me through its aftermath, for being the kind of brother who values my well-being over social comfort. Looking back, I can see that the marriage had been ending for months. Before Kyle showed me her profile, I'd just been too invested in the illusion to admit it. The woman I fell in love with, if she'd ever really existed, had been replaced by someone capable of elaborate deception, someone who could plan betrayal while maintaining perfect domesticity, someone who saw our shared life as a convenient cover story rather than a genuine partnership. The garage project Kyle and I are working on today isn't about avoiding difficult conversations about women or relationships. It's about finding genuine contentment in simple honesty and mutual loyalty. We've both learned that trust, once completely shattered, can only be rebuilt with people who've proven themselves capable of transparency, even when it's uncomfortable. The trap we set that Wednesday afternoon in October caught more than an unfaithful wife. It revealed the strength of brotherhood when tested by crisis, the value of friends who prioritize truth over comfort, and the surprising relief that comes from choosing reality over convenient fantasy, even when reality is harder to accept. As I watch Kyle work, I realize this is what authentic relationships look like: steady presence, reliable support, honest communication, and the kind of loyalty that doesn't waver when tested by difficulty. It took losing my marriage to understand what I'd been missing. But now that I know the difference, I'll never settle for performance again. The afternoon light slants through the garage windows, and I can hear Kyle humming as he works. Tomorrow, we'll probably do something equally ordinary. Maybe watch a game, maybe work on the fence that needs repair. Simple activities with someone I trust completely, building a life based on truth rather than comfortable lies. It's a good life. Maybe not the one I'd planned, but infinitely better than the one I'd been living without knowing it. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.